Airport security pulled him aside. "Sir, our system shows you died last month. We need to see your ID." Thomas Anderson, very much alive, stood there confused. The TSA supervisor checked the database. "According to Social Security records, you passed away on April 3rd. Someone filed a death certificate." Thomas pulled out his phone, called his attorney. "Check who filed for my life insurance. I think my son just tried to kill me legally." His name was Thomas Anderson, 67 years old in 2006, retired airline pilot, flew commercial jets for Delta Airlines for 35 years. Started as a flight engineer in 1971, worked his way up to captain, retired in 2006 with a full pension and benefits. Thomas had done well for himself. Not wealthy, but very comfortable. Owned his house outright. Had a pension of $6,200 per month. Social Security, savings, investments. Total net worth around $1.8 million. For a kid who grew up in a trailer park in rural Georgia, he'd made it. He'd been married to Sharon for 40 years when she died of a stroke in 2004. Sudden, no warning. One day she was gardening, the next day she was gone. Thomas was devastated. They'd planned to travel the world together in retirement. Now he was traveling alone. They'd had 2 children. A daughter, Emily, 38, married with 3 kids, living in Seattle. She was a physical therapist, good kid, called every week, visited twice a year, had her life together, and a son, Brian, 35, divorced, living in Atlanta, 30 miles from Thomas. And Brian was a problem. Brian had always been the difficult one. Smart kid but lazy, entitled, thought the world owed him something. Dropped out of college twice, couldn't hold a job for more than a year, 3 failed businesses in 10 years. Each time Thomas had bailed him out, paid his debts, given him fresh starts. Brian's ex-wife, Jennifer, had divorced him in 2003 after 7 years of marriage, took their 2 kids, said Brian was irresponsible, unreliable, and had a gambling problem. The divorce cost Brian everything. Jennifer got the house, the kids, and child support payments Brian couldn't afford. After the divorce, Brian moved into a cheap apartment and started asking Thomas for money regularly. $500 here, $1,000 there. "Just until I get back on my feet, Dad." Thomas helped at first, but by 2005 he'd given Brian over $30,000, and Brian was no closer to being back on his feet. Sharon, before she died, had warned Thomas, "You're enabling him. Every time you give him money, you're teaching him he doesn't have to be responsible. Stop helping him." After Sharon died, Thomas tried to follow her advice. When Brian asked for money, Thomas said no. "Brian, you're 34 years old. You need to figure this out yourself." Brian didn't take it well. "Dad, I'm struggling. You're sitting on almost $2 million and you won't help your own son? I've helped you for 15 years. I've given you over $80,000 total. You've never paid back a penny. You've never changed your behavior. I'm not giving you any more. Fine, don't come crying to me when you're old and need help." Thomas didn't hear from Brian for 6 months after that. No calls, no visits. Emily told Thomas that Brian was bitter, felt abandoned, was telling people Thomas had cut him off completely. In early 2006, Brian reached out again. Different tone this time. Apologetic. "Dad, I'm sorry. I've been angry and I took it out on you. Can we have dinner? I want to fix our relationship." Thomas was cautious but hopeful. They met at a steakhouse in April 2006. Brian seemed genuine, talked about going back to school, getting his life together, apologized for being entitled and irresponsible. "Dad, I realize now you were right. I was using you as a crutch. I need to stand on my own. I'm enrolled in a tech certification program. Gonna get into IT, make a real career." Thomas was proud. "That's great, Brian. I'm glad you're taking responsibility. I know I can't ask for money anymore. I burned that bridge, but I was hoping we could rebuild our relationship. Maybe have dinner once a month. I miss you, Dad." They started having monthly dinners, April, May, June. Brian seemed different, more mature, more focused. Thomas started to believe his son had finally grown up. In late June, Brian asked Thomas for something unusual. "Dad, I'm doing my estate planning. Part of my tech course requires us to get organized financially. Can I get a copy of your insurance policy information for my records? In case something happens to you, I need to know who to contact." Thomas didn't think much of it. "Sure, I'll email you the policy numbers." Thomas had a $500,000 life insurance policy through Delta. Beneficiaries were split equally, 50% to Emily, 50% to Brian. Standard setup. He sent Brian the information, policy number, insurance company contact, beneficiary details. 2 weeks later, in mid-July, Thomas planned a trip to visit Emily in Seattle. Hadn't seen his grandkids in 6 months. Booked a flight for July 18th. He drove to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, checked his bags, went through security. That's when everything went wrong. The TSA agent scanned his driver's license, frowned, scanned it again, called over a supervisor. The supervisor, a woman in her 50s, looked at the screen, then at Thomas. "Mr. Anderson, can you step over here, please?" Thomas followed her to a private screening area. "Is there a problem?" "Sir, when did you get this driver's license?" "Renewed it 3 months ago." "Why?" "Because according to our system, you're deceased. The license is flagged as belonging to a deceased person." Thomas laughed. "I'm clearly not deceased." "I can see that, sir, but our system is connected to Social Security and state vital records. It shows Thomas James Anderson, born March 15, 1939, died April 3, 2006. Thomas stopped laughing. "That's my name and birth date, but I didn't die in April. I'm standing right here." "Yes, sir, which means someone filed a fraudulent death certificate. I need to call this in." The supervisor called TSA Security. They called Social Security Administration, confirmed it. Thomas Anderson was officially listed as dead in federal databases. Death certificate filed in Fulton County, Georgia on April 8, 2006. Cause of death, heart attack. Thomas stood there, bags checked, flight boarding in 45 minutes, being told he was legally dead. "Sir, you can't board this flight until we resolve this. We need proof you're alive, and we need to report the fraudulent death certificate." Thomas missed his flight. Spent 4 hours at the airport dealing with federal agents, Social Security investigators, and airport security. Finally, they cleared him to travel. Gave him a letter stating there was an error in the system and he was confirmed alive. Rebooked him on a flight the next day. But Thomas wasn't thinking about Seattle anymore. He was thinking about that death certificate. Who filed it? Why? He called his attorney from the airport, Gerald Ross. They'd worked together for 20 years. "Gerald, someone filed a death certificate for me. Said I died in April. I need you to find out who did it and why." "Thomas, that's identity theft, fraud. Did you call the police?" "TSA called Social Security. They're investigating. But Gerald, I need you to check something else. Check if anyone has tried to file a claim on my life insurance. If someone filed a fake death certificate, they might be trying to collect." "I'll call the insurance company right now. Delta's insurance carrier is National Life, right?" "Yeah. I'll call you back in an hour." Gerald called back in 45 minutes. His voice was tight. "Thomas, you need to sit down." "I'm sitting." "Someone filed a death claim on your policy, April 12th, 4 days after the death certificate was filed. The claimant was Brian Anderson, your son. He submitted the death certificate, your policy information, and a claim form for $250,000. Thomas felt like he'd been hit in the chest. Brian did this. The insurance company paid out $225,000 after their standard deductions. The check was cashed April 28th. Thomas, your son declared you dead, filed false paperwork, and collected on your life insurance. That's fraud. That's a federal crime. Thomas sat in that airport terminal, people rushing past him, planes taking off, and tried to process it. His son had legally killed him, filed a fake death certificate, collected $225,000 in life insurance, and Thomas had been having dinner with him every month, completely unaware. Gerald, I need to report this. Police, FBI, whoever handles this. I'll set it up, but Thomas, you need to understand. If we pursue this, Brian goes to prison. This is federal fraud. He'll face 10, 20 years. He tried to kill me on paper, tried to steal from me. He deserves prison. Thomas flew to Seattle the next day, told Emily everything. She was horrified. Dad, Brian did this? Are you sure? The insurance company has his signature on the claim form. He cashed the check. It's him. Oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. I can't believe he'd do this. Has he contacted you recently? Yeah, actually. Last month. Said he'd come into some money, an inheritance from a distant relative. Asked if I needed any help financially. I thought it was weird. Brian never offers to help anyone. He wasn't offering to help. He was covering his tracks, making it seem like he got money from somewhere legitimate. Thomas filed a police report in Atlanta. The fraud investigation expanded quickly. FBI got involved. Insurance fraud crosses state lines, makes it federal. Investigators pulled the death certificate. It was a forgery, official form, but the doctor's signature was fake. The medical examiner's stamp was fake. Brian had either made it himself or paid someone to make it. They pulled security footage from the bank where the insurance check was cashed. Clear images of Brian endorsing the check, depositing it. They pulled Brian's bank records. The $225,000 had been deposited April 28th. By July, he'd spent $80,000. New car, paid off debts, down payment on a condo, gambling trips to Vegas. The FBI arrested Brian on July 25, 2006, at his apartment. He was packing for another Vegas trip. They charged him with insurance fraud, filing a false death certificate, identity theft, and wire fraud. Federal charges, each carrying years in prison. Brian's initial reaction was denial. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything wrong. But the evidence was overwhelming. His signature on the claim form, his face on the bank camera, the money in his account, the false death certificate filed with his information. His attorney tried to negotiate. My client was desperate. He has mental health issues. He wasn't thinking clearly. He'll pay the money back. The federal prosecutor was unmoved. Your client declared his father legally dead, forged official documents, committed insurance fraud, and spent $80,000 of stolen money in 3 months. He's not mentally ill. He's a criminal. Brian's attorney asked Thomas to drop the charges, called Gerald. Your client is Brian's father. Surely he doesn't want to send his own son to prison. If Thomas drops the complaint, we can resolve this civilly. Gerald asked Thomas what he wanted to do. Thomas didn't hesitate. I don't want to drop anything. Brian didn't just steal money. He erased me. He told the federal government I was dead. Do you know what that does to someone? I couldn't fly. My bank accounts were flagged. My Social Security was suspended. My credit cards were canceled. I was dead on paper and had to prove I was alive. He did that to me, his own father. So no, I don't want to drop the charges. Brian pleaded guilty to avoid trial. Sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Ordered to pay back $225,000 plus penalties and fees. Total restitution $312,000. Brian had spent $80,000. He had $145,000 left. The court seized it. The condo down payment was reversed. The car was repossessed. Brian's assets were liquidated, but he still owed $167,000. The court ordered wage garnishment. When he got out of prison, 25% of any income would go to Thomas until the debt was paid. Emily tried to mediate. Dad, he's still your son. He made a terrible mistake, but he's family. He legally killed me, Emily, filed a death certificate, collected life insurance on me while I was alive, then kept having dinner with me every month like nothing happened. That's not a mistake. That's sociopathic. He's going to prison for 8 years. Isn't that enough? That's what the judge decided. I didn't choose the sentence. I just chose not to lie for him. Brian served 6 years with good behavior, got out in 2012. Thomas was 73 by then. Brian tried to contact him. Letter from prison before his release. Dad, I'm sorry. I was desperate and I made a horrible choice. I know I can't fix what I did, but I want to try to make amends. Can we talk? Thomas never responded. Brian tried again when he got out. Showed up at Thomas's house. Thomas called the police, had a restraining order filed. Brian tried going through Emily. She refused to help. Brian, you faked Dad's death. You don't get to just apologize and have everything go back to normal. You broke something that can't be fixed. Thomas lived until 2019, made it to 80, died peacefully of natural causes, real death certificate this time. His will had been updated in 2007. Emily inherited everything. Brian was explicitly excluded. The will stated, I leave nothing to my son Brian Anderson, as he has already collected $225,000 from my life insurance while I was still alive. Brian didn't contest it, knew he'd lose. The son who filed a fake death certificate for his father to collect life insurance. The airport security system that caught the fraud. The father who refused to forgive the unforgivable. The 8 years in federal prison that ended a relationship forever. Sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the most devastating betrayals. Sometimes a son sees his father as nothing more than a financial asset to be liquidated. Sometimes being legally declared dead is worse than actually dying. Thomas Anderson flew millions of miles in his career, captained thousands of flights, brought hundreds of thousands of passengers safely home. But the day airport security told him he was dead, he learned his own son had been willing to erase him from existence for $225,000. And now you know the rest of the story. Paul Harvey. Good day.